Welcome to a special bonus edition of the Old Time Radio Superman Show. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. I'm recording this in 2021. As some listeners who may not be listening to this in 2021 might not know, in 2018, around 70% of the episodes of the Old Time Radio Superman Show were wiped off the server of the original host they were on. And so in 2020 and in 2021, I got around to restoring these on our new host. As part of that process, I've had the opportunity to think about and maybe tweak a couple things that I did back when I was originally uploading these episodes. I've not replaced any of the episodes with newer commentary or anything like that. I think the shows that I recorded, back, 10 years or so ago should just stand on their own. However, at this point, the podcast is going to get into a really long saga for Superman. It's spread across 5 different serials, more than 70 different episodes, all centered around Kryptonite, and the villains who want to use it against the Man of Steel and to fulfill their own evil ends. The thing that you understand having listened to this saga is that in many ways it is a sequel to events that came previously. There was, in particular, a story called Meteor from Krypton. When I first started on the saga, I stated that the entire serial of Meteor from Krypton was missing. That's not the case now. It probably was back then. To quote the spirit of Christmas present, I'm usually fairly reliable. But there now is an episode of that serial that's now in circulation. Now, as a matter of policy, I don't play single episodes or serials that don't have an ending or are far too incomplete. However, if I were playing the first part of the next serial, which I incorrectly identified on the podcast as Meteor from Krypton, when the sequel serial was actually called Meteor of Kryptonite. At any rate, if I were playing Meteor of Kryptonite for the first time today, I would definitely play Meteor from Krypton, or at least the one part we have of it, as a bonus episode to get some background on what went on back then. So, all that to say, from June 7th, 1943, here is Meteor from Krypton, Part 3.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look! Up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman! Yes, it's Superman, strange visitor from another world, who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. But before we join Superman, here is an important message.
Oh, boy, am I glad it's lunchtime.
Hey, Tom, you eating with anybody? How's for having lunch with me?
Okay, but I got a good start already.
Me too. Man, am I hungry. Building a bomb sure gives a guy an appetite, huh?
Yeah, it sure does. Say, which reminds me, I'm beginning to think wings run in our family.
Wings in your family?
Yeah.
Hey, fella, you sure you feel all right?
Oh, sure. I'm okay. Just a figure of speech, see? It's like this. Here I am working in a plane factory, first of all.
Yeah.
And my eldest son's flying with the American Air Force somewhere in Europe.
Oh, I begin to see.
And now my youngest son turns out to be a real aviation nut. He's got about 14 model planes already.
Holy smoke, must have cost you plenty.
Now we come to the best part. He gets those models free out of Kellogg's pep packages.
Hey, some free prize.
You said it. And they're mighty neat planes, Bill. They're made out of basswood. They're all marked, so you just cut them out and put them together. You don't even need any glue.
Well, where have I been all my life? Uh-oh. We better get back to work, huh? Wait till I tell my son about this. He's nuts about planes.
Yes, gang, everybody's talking about the nifty free model planes you get in the Kellogg's PEP packages. But that's not the whole story. In some of the PEP packages, you can get a free hot iron transfer instead of the model plane. A transfer of the U.S. Air Force combat insignia. And it's no trick at all to put this insignia on your own shirt or jacket. Now, this hot iron transfer is at the bottom of the wax paper bag inside the PEP package. So remember that. And, gang, be sure you make crisp, delicious PEP your own special breakfast. See how many free prizes you can collect. And remember the name now, PEP. P-E-P. PEP is made by Kellogg's in Battle Creek. And now, the adventures of Superman. Never in his entire career had Superman faced a situation as dangerous as the one he is involved in now. In previous episodes, we heard how a flaming meteor flashed through the heavens and landed on a farm a few miles outside Metropolis. Sent to cover the story, Superman, in his guise of the mild-mannered reporter, Clark Kent, found that when he approached the meteor, he grew dizzy and seemed to lose all strength. Editor Perry White of the Daily Planet insisted that Kent be examined by a doctor. Kent, however, realizing that his true identity of Superman might be revealed by a physical examination, refused. But White would not take no for an answer. As our last episode ended, Superman was in a spot from which there seemed no escape. To take a blood count, Dr. Turner had jabbed Kent's finger with a needle, the result being that the needle snapped and broke. Taking another needle, the doctor prepared to try again. Knowing that the needle could not possibly penetrate his skin, that it would again break, and that he would be unable to offer any explanation for the strange phenomenon, Kent was in a ticklish position. We join him now in the doctor's office as the doctor prepares to make use of the second needle. Perry White is standing by. Listen.
Now then, Kent, if you'll just hold still.
Wait a minute.
Yes?
I'm not going through any more of this. I've stood this examination as long as I can. You'll just have to end it right here.
Nonsense, my boys. I told you this won't hurt.
I can't let you jab my finger with that needle again.
Well, why not?
Well, I just can't, that's all. No, never in all my life have I heard anything quite so ridiculous. I'm sorry, Mr. White.
Now, look here, Kent. I'm beginning to lose patience with you. I must take this blood count and...
Want me to take it, Doc?
No, I'll take it.
And I'm really surprised at you.
Dr. Turner speaking.
You just don't understand, Mr. White.
Yes?
All I know is you're acting like a 5-year-old child.
Oh, okay. I'll be right over. Well, you've got a temporary reprieve, Kent. That was an emergency call from the hospital. I'll have to leave at once. But I want to see you back here tomorrow morning for that blood count.
I'll think about it. You'll think about nothing. I'll have him here in the morning, Doc. Don't worry. If I have to drag him by his hair.
Well, make it about 10. I'm sorry I have to rush you off like this, but that's how things go. You know where your clothes are, Kent.
Yes, Doctor. Thanks.
See you in the morning.
All right, now. Come on. Get dressed and we'll go. Need any help? Oh, no. I can do it alone. What in the name of heaven are you so nervous about? Nervous? Me? Yes. You're jittery as a cat. Why not? Oh, come on. Your clothes are in the next room. I'll get them. No. Don't touch my clothes. Don't touch them. All right. Good grief. Will they made of spun gold? Of course not. I just don't like people handling my clothes. Well, frankly, Kent, I think you're nuts. But go on in there and get dressed. We've wasted enough time. Okay, I'll be right out. Wow, that was close. Ooh, Perry White had seen that red cape and the blue tights hidden underneath my business jacket. I could never have explained that. Well, I better get into my clothes as quickly as I can. Good thing Dr. Turner was called away, or I'd be trying to explain myself out of plenty. Explain. Wish I could explain my strange reaction to that meteor. Why do I get weak every time I come within 5 feet of it? And Krypton. Why did I keep repeating that word over and over again? Krypton. What has the word Krypton to do with me? Sounds familiar, but I just can't place it. I must find out, because unless I'm very much mistaken, Krypton is the key to this whole strange business.
And Kent is right. Krypton is the key. But before he can place that key in the lock that guards the secret of Krypton, he has a long way to go. And so, a few hours later, back at the Daily Planet, as Perry White enters Clark Kent's office, he finds... but wait, let's listen.
the meaning of this? Encyclopedias piled up on your desk, reference books strewn all over the floor. What's the big idea?
I'm trying to find some explanation for the word Krypton.
Now, wait a minute, Kent. Wait a minute. Aren't you going a little overboard about all this?
What do you mean?
Well, people have collapsed before, you know, and have said so many strange things while they were semi-conscious.
Sure, I'm aware of that, but somehow, for some unaccountable reason, I've just got a feeling that the word Krypton means something.
Well, I doubt it. You found anything?
No, not a thing. I don't even know how to spell it.
Well, that should be simple. Krypton.
Oh, sure, that's one way, but it might be CRI or KRI or any one of a dozen combinations. Heaven help me, I think I'll try them all.
Well, if I were you, I'd forget it.
I suppose you're right. No point in getting too excited about it.
Kent, you understand that my only interest here is to help, don't you?
Well, certainly, Chief. Why do you ask?
Merely because I had a feeling you didn't want me to help. Oh, that you'd rather be left alone.
No, Chief, not at all.
I really get hunches. When I do, they're usually right. Now tell me, why did you refuse to be examined by Dr. Turner?
Oh, now, Chief, no. Don't let's go into that again. Has Lois returned from the museum yet?
No, and don't change the subject.
I'm not. Krypton might be spelled CRIPPTON. I'll have a look.
Kent, you're worried.
Oh, no, Chief.
Yes, you are. Why do you go on denying it? Worry is written in every line of your face. I've noticed it from the moment you first collapsed, when you got close to that meteor.
I've collapsed before. We ought to be used to that by this time.
No, it's different this time. You've always had a reason for folding up in the past. You've been frightened by something, unnerved by danger. But this time there was no danger, nothing to be afraid of. I could even let that pass if I didn't have the feeling that something's bothering you.
C-R-I-P. No, nothing's bothering me, Chief, believe me.
Well, all right, if you insist. But I don't understand it. I really don't. Dr. Turner said, so far as he was concerned, there couldn't possibly be anything wrong with you. He said you have the physique of a Superman. What's the matter?
Nothing. I accidentally tore the page of this encyclopedia.
Oh.
Well, I give up. Can't find Krypton in any of these reference books, except, of course, the gas Krypton, which can't possibly have any connection. I guess I better get to work on the Meteor story for the late edition.
Lois can take care of that. Why don't you go home and rest?
Oh, I'm not in need of any rest. I'll just sit down and bang out a rough draft.
All right, if you want to. But Lois ought to have a lot more information about it when she gets back from the museum.
Yes, that's right. Dr. Whistler has probably been able to explain to her what kind of a meteor it is, where it came from, and all the rest of it.
Ken.
Yes, Chief?
I hope you'll excuse my harping on the same subject so long, but don't you really think you should take a vacation, go away for a few weeks?
No, I don't. I feel fine.
Well, I must say you look all right, but...
Oh, so there you are.
Well, it's about time, Miss Lane.
I got back as quickly as I could, Chief.
Oh, good. Now that you're here, you're going to help me write the story about that meteor for the late edition. Suppose you... Well, Lois, what's wrong? Why are you looking at me that way?
Clark, just what are you hiding from Mr. White and me?
Hiding?
That's what I said. What are you hiding from us?
Nothing that I know of.
That's not true, Clark.
Oh, wait a minute, Lois. Take it easy.
Yes, please take it easy. It seems to me...
I'm not interested in how things seem to you. I've got some questions I want to ask you, and I want straight answers.
Well, now, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I don't get this, Lois. I don't get it at all.
Well, then perhaps I'd better explain.
Well, it would sort of help.
Well, I've just come from the museum, Chief, where I watched Dr. Whistler put that meteor through 101 tests. It was fascinating. He threw a lot of scientific lingo at me while he worked, but I
suppose you forget the build-up, Lois. Just what's wrong. What's happened?
Yes.
Well, he worked over it, chipping off a piece of the blackened crust here and there, applying acids and chemicals of all descriptions.
Yes.
Finally, he told me what that meteor is.
Well?
When I heard its name, Clark, I nearly fell through the floor.
Why?
I made sure I heard right, and then I came over here as quickly as I could.
Well, what did you hear? What did Dr. Whistler tell you?
Prepare yourself for a shock, Chief. The name of that meteor is Kryptonite.
As Lois pronounces the name Kryptonite, Clark Kent and Perry White stare at her in blank amazement. In a moment, we'll bring you the exciting climax to today's story. But first, here is another important message. Gang, have you noticed every now and then that you can't always have the seconds of some of the things you like best? Well, that's not true where Kellogg's Pep is concerned. There's plenty of Pep for everybody these days. And what's more, Pep's mighty good for you as well as mighty good to eat. Why, just one-ounce serving of those crisp golden whole wheat flakes gives you the vitamin D you need for one day. And Pep is the only nationally advertised wheat flake cereal to give you this amount of the sunshine vitamin. And that's not all.
Right inside every single package of pep is a free prize, a model plane or a hot iron transfer of one of the U.S. Air Force combat insignia. This hot iron transfer is at the bottom of the wax paper bag inside the pep package. So remember that. And gang, be sure your mother gets you a package of pep tomorrow. Remember the name Pep, P-E-P. Pep is made by Kellogg's in Battle Creek.
And now, back to our story. Lois, facing Perry White and Clark Kent in the latter's office, says,
Prepare yourselves for a shock. The name of that meteor is Kryptonite.
Kryptonite? Never heard of it myself.
Nor did I. Dr. Whistler told me few people ever had. The planet Krypton was known to a handful of astronomers and no one else. And yet you, Clark, while you were unconscious, mentioned the name Krypton over and over again. How do you explain it?
Explain it?
Well, you knew of its existence. You must have, or you could never have spoken its name. Yet Dr. Whistler assures me that the people who know about Krypton can be counted on the fingers of one hand, and that every single one of them is a scientist. Now, you're no scientist, Clark, and you never have been, so far as I know.
No, but...
You couldn't possibly have any knowledge of the planet Krypton. Yet you distinctly mentioned its name over and over again.
I know.
Well, explain it, Mr. Kent. Explain it if you can.
Explain it? How can Clark Kent explain it, when even he at the moment has only a hazy knowledge of his true origin? Dazed, bewildered, with hundreds of unanswered questions rushing through his mind, he can only stand and stare at Lois Lane. What will be the outcome of this latest predicament Superman finds himself in? What can he do to preserve his long-held secret? Be sure to be with us tomorrow, same time, same station, for another exciting episode. Tune in and follow The Adventures of Superman.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look! Up in the sky! It's a bird!
It's a plane!
It's Superman!
Follow The Adventures of Superman every day, Monday through Friday, same time, same station. Superman is directed by George Lothar and is a copyrighted feature appearing in Superman DC Publications. This is Mutual.
Welcome back. It's important to note that all we can gather, even though we don't have the origin story that aired back in 1942 when they restarted the series, it's safe to conclude that there was more of a standard origin given to Superman, not one where he landed on Earth fully grown, as we heard in the first episode and the origin story from 1940. In fact, there's a later serial that deals with someone acquiring the rocket that brought Superman to Earth from the estate of his foster parents. So, in this take on Superman, he's not fully aware of his origins, and they're kind of locked deep in his subconscious. And so this story really serves to kind of bring that out and to help him discover the truth about his origins. And even as a piece that's not complete, it's still an interesting episode. It definitely does push things to a head with not only Lois Lane, but also Perry White. And this is also a good episode for highlighting Perry as a character and the nature of the relationship he has with Clark Kent and Superman. I think it's safe to say that the movies and also animated programs about Superman tend to give the role of Perry White as really a sort of functional role. He's there just to be the newspaper editor who pushes forward the action, who gives out the assignments, and there's really not much else for him to do. There's not time, really, with the adventures going on and the need to get things resolved. I think that the radio series, and also the first two live-action Superman series, the George Reeves series, and then later the Dean Cain, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, really did give Perry a bigger role. He wasn't just a functional character who was there to do functional things. He really does have this sort of fatherly relationship. He does care about his people, and, this was a really good example of that, where, he's genuinely concerned, like, what's happened? Something is wrong with you, and we've got to figure that out, and if there is a problem or if this needs treated, we need to get this addressed. We can't play around with that. And I think that caring really does come through, and there's a warmth in the performance from Julian Noah, which can be missed, because so often he's just kind of blustering and often blowing a bit of hot air about this and that, as well as fretting and worrying. Lois's explanation about Krypton is interesting, a bit overstated in the way that, it's hard to imagine that only 5 scientists, knew about Krypton. It would be probably a limited number since, from what we know, it would require a really powerful telescope. But 5 seems a little bit of an exaggeration. And of course you do have the challenge of having a planet where what we call them and what they call the planet themselves is the same thing. But I think a lot of versions of Superman have that. And this is really interesting because this is really the first time that Kryptonite's been dealt with in any media. Jerry Siegel, the co-creator of Superman, wrote a story that was never published called The K-Metal from Krypton, but was ultimately rejected. It wouldn't actually be used in the comics until 1949, so much later after the original radio story, and certainly the sequel that you're going to hear. Now, I'm going to bring you actually another episode as a bonus. This really serves to introduce one of the villains of the story. The one thing that I realized about the stories you're about to hear is it wasn't just a 73-part saga. If you were a long-time listener to The Adventures of Superman, it was also full of what we would call Easter eggs and callbacks, as you had multiple villains that had appeared in the radio series being brought back to battle each other for the Kryptonite and also for the chance to take on Superman. And some of these villains, we do have stories for them intact. The Laugher, for example, was one, and he appeared in The Headless Indian. The Vulture was another villain, and he appeared in a story called The Tin Men. And if you are listening to this again after 2021, you may want to listen to that serial because it's one that I came across this year and added to the front of the podcast since it's, entirely new serial. But another character that plays a big role in this story is called Der Teufel, which is German for the devil. And he actually appeared prior to this. However, we only have one episode from his story. And this comes from 1944, where there aren't even really a whole lot of series fragments. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 episodes for the entire year, which, considering a rate of 260 episodes per year, ain't a whole lot. At any rate, we're going to get a flavor of what it was like when Der Teufel first battled Superman. The original air date on this one is September the 14th, 1944, and this is Der Teufel's Atomic Pistol, Part 4.
Kellogg's Pep, the super delicious cereal, presents The Adventures of Superman. Up, up, and away! Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. It's Superman. Yes, it's Superman, brought to you by that super delicious cereal, Kellogg's Pep. Today, Clark Kent and Perry White are aghast at the contents of a note left for them by the German scientist Tuefel. We'll join them in a moment. But right now, gang, I've got a little reminder for you. This is the time when many of you are starting back to school, and that sometimes means that you have less time for breakfast than you're used to. But don't forget that you need a good, hearty breakfast just as much now as you did in vacation, perhaps even more. And right there is where that super delicious cereal, Kellogg's Pep, can do you a doubly good turn. In the first place, those crisp golden whole wheat flakes are chock full of important whole grain nourishment, the kind you should get every day. And what's more, every regular 1-ounce bowl full of Pep gives you more vitamin B1 and more vitamin D than you can get in any other nationally advertised wheat flake cereal. And you know how important both those vitamins are. And man alive, does Kellogg's Pep taste grand. I'm willing to bet you'll be right back for a second bowlful when you've finished the first, because those crisp, flavorsome flakes have so much grand flavor. So, gang, be sure your mother gets you a package of Pep tomorrow. Make it your own special breakfast this fall, and remember the name Pep, P-E-P. Pep is made by Kellogg's in Battle Creek.
And now, the adventures of Superman. Armed with Germany's newest secret weapon, an atomic energy gun capable of disintegrating steel, a Nazi scientist named Tuefel abducted Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane, planning to use them to lure Superman to his death. While Tuefel held the two reporters captive in a deserted cliff cottage 100 miles from Metropolis, Clark Kent and editor Perry White went to the shabby waterfront house from which Jimmy and Lois had disappeared. There they found a gravely wounded shepherd dog and a letter addressed to White and Kent. As we continue now, the gray-haired editor is reading the letter, his hands trembling. Listen.
What does it say, Chief?
Wait a second. Good Godfrey.
What is it?
Jim and Lois.
Well, what about them?
We'll never see them again, Kent.
What?
Listen to this. Mr. White and Mr. Kent. James Olsen and Miss Lois Lane are in my hands. There is only one chance to save their lives. Have Superman in your office at exactly 6 o'clock this evening, prepared to receive a telephone call. If you are so foolish as to delay even 1 instant while you attempt to trace the call, Miss Lane and Olsen will forfeit their lives at once. It's signed, The Devil.
Great Scott.
They're lost, Kent. Jim and Lois are lost. How can we contact Superman?
Let me see that letter.
I read it to you.
Let me see it.
Now, don't waste time, Kent. Call Inspector Henderson. Maybe the police
Wait a
could
minute,
do...
Chief. Wait a minute. Whoever wrote this note is evidently aware that we at the Daily Planet are the only people who've had contact with Superman. And whoever it is, he's clever. Look at the ruse he used to get Jimmy and Lois here.
Ruse? What do you mean?
The dog. I'm convinced now that it was arranged to have Jim find that dog. Then the man put the ad in the papers stating that it was a blind man's seeing eye dog, knowing that Jim would return the animal and step into the trap. I was suspicious the minute I learned the dog had no license tag.
Then why in the name of heaven did you let them return the dog? Why didn't you go along?
Because you were out of the office playing golf.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Blame it on me.
No, I'm not blaming anyone. Let's analyze this carefully. This note was evidently written by a German.
Why?
Look at the handwriting. It's almost German script.
Kent, if you don't stop wasting time playing detective, I don't know what I'll do. Now we've got to get Inspector Henderson out here and get the police working on this.
Right, Chief, but it's important to have an idea who this criminal is and what he wants. So in case he does telephone me...
Telephone you?
Huh? I mean...
Good Godfrey, it's 5:30 now, and that call for Superman is due at 6. Now, come on, we've got to find the phone, and then hop a taxi back to the office. Not that it'll do any good for us to be there. No, if there was only some way we could get in touch with Superman.
Don't worry about that.
What did you say?
I said, don't worry about it. Look, Chief, there ought to be a phone in this building somewhere. If there isn't, I remember seeing a candy store down the block. Why don't you get to a phone and call Henderson? I'll shoot back to the office.
Not without me, you won't.
But what can you do when this fellow calls?
As much as you, and maybe more. Now open the door. It's 5:35 now, and it'll take us 20 minutes to get to the office. We'll have to call Henderson from there. Oh, taxi! Taxi! Oh, wouldn't you know there wouldn't be a taxi when we need one? Taxi! Well, we made it, Kent. Just 5 minutes to 6. Come on into my office.
I just thought of something, Chief.
Well, if it's another idea to get me out of the way while you answer that phone call, save your breath. I don't know what's come over you. Now, why do you want to get rid of me?
I don't, but
Then save it, I said. Now, come on, close the door.
But, Chief, if you'll only...
Quiet. Now, Miss Backrack, get this straight. Any phone call for Mr. Kent or for me or for Superman is to be put through at once on my wire. And call Inspector Henderson and ask him if he can come right over. Tell him it's very important.
Have her call the ASPCA about the dog, Chief.
Oh, yes. And Miss Backrack, call the ASPCA and tell them a dog's been shot at 1143 West Avenue, ground floor apartment. That's all.
Chief, will you please listen to me now?
Let me pull myself together first, Kent. I'm all unnerved. Lois and Jim in the hands of a madman who wants to talk to Superman, and they'll be dead in 5 minutes unless...
They won't if Superman is on the job.
Well, how can we get hold of Superman? We don't even know where he is.
I know.
Oh, Kent, don't you go out of your mind, too? I've had just about all I can take. My nerves are quivering like violin strings.
Listen to me, Chief. Do you remember a couple of months ago when that letter came for Superman from the fishing captain called the Seagull on the Northwest Peninsula?
Yes. What about it?
Do you remember how we found Superman?
Yes. I put an announcement on our radio news hour that we had a letter for him.
Right.
By Jove, Kent.
Exactly, and Superman showed up and claimed the letter.
No, but it's 2 minutes to 6 now. That call is due in just 2 minutes.
Superman can travel pretty far in 2 minutes. Chief, why don't you go upstairs to the broadcasting station and put out a special announcement for Superman at once. Interrupt whatever program is on the air and get it out there.
George, I'll do it, Kent. And I don't know if it'll do any good, but it's worth trying. And if that madman calls up while I'm gone, try to hold him on the phone, Kent. Plead with him. Tell him we're trying to contact Superman.
Okay, Chief, get going. I thought I'd never get rid of him. I better lock the door first. There we are. Now, out of these clothes. Whether a crackpot has Lois and Jimmy, as the chief thinks, or whether a smart Nazi has them, as I think, I gotta be prepared to act fast as Superman. There, I'm ready. Just in time. 6 o'clock. Said he'd call at 6. I hope he doesn't disappoint me. Oh, there it is, right on the dot. Hello?
I would like to speak with Superman.
Who's calling?
This is the devil.
This is Superman speaking.
Listen then, Superman, if it is really you.
It is, all right. What have you done to Jimmy Olsen and Miss Lane?
There is no time for questions. If you try to delay me while you attempt to trace this call, I will hang up and not call again. Is that clear?
Clear enough. Go ahead.
Meet me at a place about 100 miles from Metropolis. If you are Superman, as you say, you should be able to arrive here in less than a minute. Am I not correct?
Go ahead. Keep talking.
I will give you just 60 seconds from the time I hang up the telephone to arrive here. If you are Superman, you will be able to do it. If you are not, your joke will cost you dearly. Because at the end of the 60 seconds, Olsen and Miss Lane will die, and I will be gone long before your stupid police can arrive.
Tell me where you are.
Head southwest over the ocean toward Cape May. About 100 miles out, you will pass an old abandoned lighthouse.
Yes?
Turn at right angles there for the shore. You will see a tiny cottage set high on a wooded cliff. We will be waiting for you.
Southwest to an abandoned lighthouse, then right angles to a little cottage on a wooded cliff?
That is right. Now I will begin timing the minutes.
Just a moment. Why do you want me?
That you will find out when you arrive. Goodbye now. You have just 60 seconds to reach here if you wish to save your friend.
Wait a minute. Hung up. 60 seconds, eh? I don't need that long. Up with this window. So he wants Superman, does he? Well, he's going to get him COD.
Out! And away! Leaping from Perry White's office window like an avenging eagle, red cape streaming, Superman hurtles through the early evening skies for the tiny cottage. We'll return in a moment for the dramatic climax of today's episode. But first, John wants to have a word with you.
Gang, have you been learning the nifty pointers that are printed on the backs of all the Kellogg's Pep plane models? You can pick up a lot of valuable information about each particular plane from these pointers. Naturally, if you've gotten all 14 models in this series, you can get a good head start on being an aviation expert. Remember, there's a model plane inside every single package of super delicious Kellogg's Pep. It's made of colored cardboard, and it's easy as pie to put together. You just press out the parts with your thumbs and assemble them. And there are 14 different models you can get all together. Exciting planes like the British Defiant and the Lockheed Lightning and the Grumman Hellcat. You can even get a model of a Sikorsky helicopter. And best of all, gang, you don't have to send in a single penny for any of these grand models, not even a box top. Just open up a package of Pep, and you'll find another model plane right inside. So, gang, keep on making those golden, delicious whole wheat flakes your own special breakfast. Keep on building up your squadrons of model planes. And remember the name, Pep, P-E-E. Pep is made by Kellogg's in Battle Creek.
And now, back to our story. Telephoning the Daily Planet where Superman was awaiting the call, Tuefel, the Nazi scientist, gave the Man of Steel just 1 minute to travel the 100 miles to the cottage where Tuefel is holding Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane prisoners. Streaking over the ocean, Superman turned toward shore at an abandoned lighthouse.
There's the cottage, high up on the wooded cliff, all right. Faster! Uh-oh. Jim and Lois in the cottage, bound hand and foot, and a tall, gaunt woman watching them. Who's the squat man on the porch with the German haircut and the glasses? That must be our friend the devil. He's got a pistol in his hand. Looks like he's waiting for me. Okay, down to him first, down to that porch. Down! Good evening.
Ach, du lieber. Superman.
Yes, you wanted to see me, didn't you? Or was that telephone call your idea of a joke?
The devil does not joke, my friend.
And drop that toy pistol. It's the funniest thing I've seen in a long time.
You will not find it so funny when I press the trigger.
Well, you are a Nazi, aren't you? And evidently you haven't been here very long. Otherwise you'd know that guns don't frighten me. Now drop it.
Stand back, you fool. This is no ordinary gun.
Ordinary or not, I'm going to...
You see, you cannot move. The atomic beam has stopped you dead in your tracks.
What is this? What's happening?
It is the beginning of a new order. I am holding you powerless. You, Superman.
No.
Now my weapon will force you back to the edge of the cliff.
No.
A little more energy. No.
No. Stop it.
Back, Superman. Back!
No.
This is the end!
No!
You have met your master! Back!
No!
Back!
Seemingly helpless against the miniature bolt of lightning crackling from the muzzle of Teufel's amazing weapon, the Man of Steel staggers back toward the edge of the cliff, robbed of his amazing strength. And advancing on him step by step, his fat, ugly face aglow with triumph, the Nazi scientist slowly squeezes the trigger of his atom gun until the crackle of the electric spark becomes a thunderous roar. What will happen? Is there no way Superman can fight off this new and deadly menace? Don't miss tomorrow's episode for a surprising shock. Tune in, same time, same station, and follow The Adventures of Superman.
Up, up, and away! Faster than a speeding bullet.
More powerful than a locomotive.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's Superman!
Follow the adventures of Superman, brought to you every day, Monday through Friday, same time, same station, by the makers of that super delicious cereal, Kellogg's Pep. And gang, I don't need to tell you that when you and your family use the same paper bags and containers over and over, instead of asking for new ones, you're helping save thousands of tons of new paper that is urgently needed by our armed forces. So get as much use as you possibly can out of every bit of paper, and when you're through with it, don't throw it out, turn it in. Superman is a copyrighted feature appearing in Superman DC publications. And gang, you know how certain mornings you could go for a little extra special breakfast treat? Well, that's what Kellogg's Crumbles were made for. Yes, these delicious, different-tasting crumbles are brimful of malty-rich flavor, a special, hearty, just-right flavor developed from a secret Kellogg recipe. And Kellogg's Crumbles are made from whole wheat, as good for you as they're good to eat. So ask your mother to get Kellogg's Crumbles, and try them soon for a top-notch breakfast.
This is Mutual.
Welcome back. Well, this definitely establishes Der Teufel as a really dangerous and very nasty villain. While Kryptonite is always the focus when it comes to Superman's weakness, there are other things that have been used that have really challenged the abilities of the Man of Steel. One of my favorites in the radio world is the story The Voice of Doom, from 1948, when dealing with a villain who was able to transmit very powerful sound waves. This particular pistol really sounds like a potent weapon that would definitely challenge the Man of Steel. There's also a lot of hints to Der Teufel being just a very cruel, heartless person, you know. Shooting the dog is a great example of that. And they definitely tried to emphasize the fact that he was a German villain. with the German script. And I did find there is actually a very distinct German style of writing, so that was correct. I don't know what they meant by a German haircut, because I can't find any evidence that that was really a thing. We also did get to see the, the more functional role that Mr. White tended to play in the radio series, which was just to complicate Clark Kent / Superman's life and his, desire to save the day, as well as to be generally pessimistic and freak out. I mean, honestly, if there were anyone who Superman could have made his life easier by just revealing the secret identity to, I think it would probably be Mr. White, because he's the most stubborn of the three people he interacts with most, and is also the toughest to brush aside since he's Clark Kent's boss. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed this look at a couple of episodes did not constitute complete serials, but which do provide a bit of context and flavor for the massive epic you're about to hear. Well, that's all for now. If you do have a comment, email it to me, adam@adamsweb.us. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.